Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Today, we're going to talk about finger picking, something that you may not have heard me do a lot of talking about or teaching about in the past. I have no YouTube videos on finger picking because, honestly, I'm pretty terrible at it. So I thought, who is the best finger picker teacher I know on the planet? And I had to go really far. I had to go really far away. In fact, it's probably as far away from where I live on the globe. I had to go all the way to Australia to bring in a very special guest, someone I've known for a long, long time, a personal friend of mine, Simon Candy from Australia. So, Simon, you are the expert. I've got my acoustic guitar here, but I'm not going to embarrass myself trying to teach people how to do finger picking because it's just not in my wheelhouse of skills, but it is one of yours. So, Simon,
Yes.
how can we, for people who are not very experienced in finger picking, who maybe are just trying to get started, want to learn what are the different kinds of finger picking techniques, how do you do them? Maybe that would be a good place for us to start.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. Always good to be here. Definitely very far. Yeah, look, finger picking. So there are different styles within finger picking, different genres. You've got classical, you've got flamenco, you've got sort of country type finger picking. They're all very much related, or there's crossover certainly in the technique. And so perhaps a good place to start is just some fundamentals first, and then we can get into some different approaches to finger picking. So we'll just get some fundamentals sort of down first, pretty briefly, but always important. So in terms of posture and sitting with the guitar, you can have the guitar on your left leg if you are right-handed like me, or on your right leg, so the sort of classical position. I sometimes do play like that. You can put it on sort of your right leg or left, depending how you are, and that's okay too, but it's probably not the best position to be in to finger pick. It's a little bit more tension. You can't quite get the guitar angled in the best possible way to finger pick. The other is to just cross one leg over the other and then have the guitar on the leg that is crossing over. And that kind of puts it in between those two positions. And I typically find that the most comfortable. That's how I have it now. So you can kind of please yourself. Either of those will work. So you don't have to make any big shift there if you don't want to. As far as our picking hand is concerned, there's a very quick way that we can get it into the right position, absolutely guaranteed, foolproof, works every single time. And it's very important because a lot of people will go at finger picking like they are using a flat pick, and their fingers will be at odd angles to the strings, and you're not going to get a good sound. You're not going to get much fluency or anything like that. So the thing that you want to do to get the hand in the right position is to get your third, middle, index fingers and the thumb of your picking hand all side by side on the third string of the guitar. So they're all on the third string, the G. My thumb's in front of these fingers. It has to be for them all to be on the string at the same time, just lightly touching. And then from there, once you've got your hand like that, you take your thumb and you move it to the bottom string. The index finger stays on the third string, and your middle finger just moves up to the second string, and your ring finger moves to the first string. And if you do that, you're in the perfect position to finger pick. So if you're looking down from your viewpoint, probably hard to show here, maybe I can show it a little bit. You see that the thumb and the index finger cross over. You'll see it more from your viewpoint, and they make a little bit of sort of like an X shape almost. They're crossing over. The thumb's in front of these fingers. A lot of the time people in an incorrect position have the thumb behind the fingers, or the fingers in front of the thumb. We don't want that. We want them behind. They don't want to be all the way over here and our thumb over here. That's going to be awkward and no good. But if you go through that very quick, easy process, 3 fingers thumb, then spread out to their respective strings, you're in the right position. Then there's the pinky. So there's 2 schools of thought with the pinky. I don't think either is wrong. You can choose what is best for you, but there's either the floating pinky, so it just sits there, it just floats, nice and relaxed, and you'll go about finger picking and it's just going to hang around. We don't use the pinky typically when we're picking. We can, but we don't really use it that much, if at all. Or you can have the resting pinky on the body of the guitar. Now, I tend to have it resting most of the time. I used to have more of a floating pinky. I find it better for myself to have the resting pinky, but there is a little bit of a caveat here, and that is not to put it down and anchor it down on the guitar and have all this tension as a result through your arm. That's kind of the tail wagging the dog there, and the fingers will be restricted because you'll have your pinky, and this happens a lot. People have the pinky down and they push really hard and restricts all the movement you can have in your fingers. You want that pinky to be really well rested, or lightly rested, I should say, on the body of the guitar, so it can move if you need to move your hand up and down the strings here for various reasons.
So no anchor, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. Anchor is probably not a good term for anchoring the pinky down, because that's kind of implying you're going to be pushing into the fretboard, and as soon as you push in, even just a little bit, you can do it, and you'll see that all of a sudden you feel the tension in your hand, and if you push a little harder in your arm. You want it very, very, very light, but it does make a difference for stability. But some people don't, and that is fine too. But that's the thing there, to not have it stuck and then have it all, have it dictate how these fingers are going to move around it. So that's the hand position. Now, in terms of plucking the strings, typically when finger picking, you'll have nails, right? My nails aren't really long, but they do extend beyond the fingertip a little bit. And I keep them rounded with a file. So, every few days or whenever needed, I'll file them. Now, you can finger pick without nails. So you don't need to have nails to finger pick. There are great finger pickers out there who have no nail. And as a result, they develop calluses on the fingertips, which provide tone. The nail is going to give you a sharper sort of tone. If it's just the flesh, it's not as sharp, which is okay if that's the sound you want. But the nail is, I mean, if I didn't have my nails there, it'd feel really, really weird. So I always recommend if you want to get into finger picking a bit, just get in the nails. You can barely notice, but just beyond the fingertip, so that you can then pluck the string, not with just the nail. It's the nail and the flesh. It's both. So when I pluck a string, it depends on the tone I want. So if I want a bit of a warmer sort of tone, I will put the finger on a slightly different angle to get more of the flesh plucking the string versus the nail. So there is a variance you can get in tone when you've got the nail, because you can get a little bit more flesh versus nail, a little bit more nail versus flesh, or somewhere in the middle. Subtle differences with the angle of the fingers. You can get a more nail or less nail. But generally speaking, I will have pretty even distribution of flesh to nail, which is typically what you get when you've got your hand in this position, where your fingers are more or less, when you go through that process, are at 90-degree angles to the string, and then you're plucking, and you'll get a little bit of flesh and a little bit of nail at the same time. It's kind of, both at the same time. So that covers basically the basics, the fundamentals. One more thing we might add here is that when we finger pick, when you see notation for finger picking, we have letters that represent the fingers that we use. So we have P for thumb, I for index, M for middle, A for the ring finger. These are Latin terms or Spanish terms that represent these fingers. P-I-M-A, so Pima, you'll sometimes hear it referred to as. And as a starting point, certainly not a rule. And sometimes people get caught up with this and think this is how it's got to be, period, for everything, which is not the case. But to begin, and as a starting point to then, reference and work from, your thumb will play the lower 3 strings, the bass strings of the guitar, and your fingers, IMA, will be on the third, second, and first strings. That's how they are when we go through that process. That does not mean that the thumb will always play the bottom strings and the index will always play the third and middle and so forth. They will cross over depending on what we're doing. There's some things we'll do today that will show that. A lot of the time it stays like that. But for me, finger choice, generally that's how I will finger pick for most things. But there's a different tone you get with each finger. And I think of it like the 3-way pickup switch, like on a Gibson, let's say. You've got a different tone with the ring finger versus the middle versus the index. I don't know how well it's going to come across on the video. And it's subtle, but when you realize it and you become more attuned to it, it's not so subtle. This ring finger is more like the bridge pickup, bit of a more trebly sound, twangier sort of sound. The middle finger, you can definitely hear the difference in tone there, is more like the middle pickup, and then this would be more like a neck pickup, the index finger. There's a different tone. So I would choose fingers sometimes based on the tone that I want. And of course that's subjective too. So there's room to move there, but we don't want to just go at it in an ad hoc way and just make it up as we go. We'll end up with awkward, inefficient technique. So this is the starting point, and then as you work through things, you'll come to know how to allocate the fingers to the strings. But some things we'll look at today will show you that. So that's the fundamentals. Really, really, really important, because if you don't get those right, then there's all sorts of problems that will come into your playing. And if you're just trying to address the symptoms, that's not going to get any better. So it's going to be most of the time somewhere in the fundamentals if something's breaking down for you. So that'd be a starting point there. So perhaps we'll go into some application of finger picking and some things we can do, some different approaches that we can use. And I'm going to use a single chord progression here. So the first chord that we're going to play will be a C chord, very standard C open chord, simple enough. Then we're going to play a G with a B in the bass. So this chord, so if you've got your C chord, we're going to keep the first finger on. We're going to drop the C to a B on the 5th string, and the pinky will play the D on the 2nd string. That's the difference between the C going to this G with the B in the bass. So even though the pinky is going in front of the first finger, we're going to keep the first finger on, because the next chord will be an A minor 7. Just a standard A minor chord. Take your 3rd finger off the 2nd string, the 3rd string, and you'll get an A minor 7. Okay, so we've got the C, we've got the G with the B, we've got the A minor 7. Then, keeping those 2 fingers on, the 3rd finger is going to grab the G in the bass. So this is a A minor 7 with a G bass. So A minor 7 / G. Now, when we do this chord, we want to, we can be selective with our fingers, but typically we just want to make sure we block out that 5th string. We don't want to hear the clash of the new bass note and the root of the chord. We want to keep that out. But it's like you could also interpret that as a C with a G in the bass. But we're going to call it an A minor 7 with a G in the bass, because the chord before it was A minor 7. So we're just changing the bass of that chord. And then we're going to have an F chord. So the F you can play as a standard bar chord. A lot of the time I play F with my thumb over the top. It frees up fingers. It's a little bit more of an efficient fingering, gets rid of any duplications in the chord. There's no right or wrong here. You can do this. You can do this. The the thumb's uncomfortable, then don't do that. Or you can just use, a little F major 7 or F, sort of chord fragment there. And then we're going to go to a G chord, and the G will, even though we can include the B here, a lot of the time with finger picking sort of stuff, you might not play that G in the bass, and it frees up fingers again to play notes around your G chord. A lot of the time with some finger picking stuff, it's enough just to play the G with your third finger on the bottom string, block out the fifth, and then have the open fourth, third, and second strings. I'm going to include my pinky on top. So they're our chords. We're going to use them throughout what we do here today. There'll be some things we'll do off of that, but it will be still the same chord progression. So we've got the C chord, G with B, A minor 7 with the G, the F, the G. So don't even really need that pinky there. You could leave that off and just, it's a pretty full sounding G chord with one finger. We don't typically play a big full clunky G. It depends what you're doing, but a lot of the time I'll just do that. And then we're back to the C. So it's a little bit of a, it's like a 6-bar chord progression there. So it will feel a little different because it's not your typical 4 or 8. Okay, so simple enough, but sounds nice, got nice movement in the bass. So that's our chord progression. Now, what can we do with it as far as finger picking is concerned? So we could just get a basic pattern going with P, I, M, and A using all 3 fingers. Now, some finger pickers will only use the 2 fingers and a thumb. No right or wrong here. Sometimes the ring, I always find the ring finger is kind of the equivalent of the pinky on the fretting hand. It can be the one that feels a little awkward, needs a little bit more work, feels a bit weaker. It's not as coordinated as the other fingers. So I would encourage, if you get into finger picking, not to just leave that because it feels awkward and only use these 2. There's plenty of fantastic finger pickers who just use the 2 fingers and a thumb. But for me, I've got a 3rd finger there. I'm going to use it. More variance in tone, more possibilities, etc. So we're going to play a pattern here that's simply going to go P, I, M, A. So going up the strings 5, 3, 2, 1. And then to complete the cycle, we're going to repeat the thumb, the index, and the middle. Okay, so it goes thumb, index, middle, ring, thumb, index, middle. So we could go like a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, just a straight up pattern, right? Very, very basic. And then we can repeat that on our G with the B in the bass and on our A minor. And when we get to A minor with the G in the bass, we're going to alter the pattern slightly to put the bass note on the 6th string. So when I play on the A minor 7 with the G, it's the 6th in terms of strings, 6, 3, 2, 1, 6, 3, 2. Okay, same pattern, P-I-M-A, P-I-M, however, from the 6th string, and then the same top 3 strings. And then we can get to the F, again, whichever F you want to do. So if I'm doing with the root on the 6th string, again, it's the same as the G chord. And if I do it on the, on the little 4-string version, I can do that with 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. And then we've got our G. So with the G, you might put your pinky on here if you want to get the high G. The E could sound nice. It's just going to color the chord. It's going to make it more a G6 of sorts. So you can please yourself there. But that's the pattern. And that's a good one to begin because it gets you plucking without making any alterations to the point I was making before about having the 3 fingers on the strings. This is a starting point and something you'll revert back to often and stay on quite often, but we can move from there as we'll see shortly. So that's a pattern that can get you going with finger picking. That's pretty straightforward. Gets all the 3 fingers and the thumb going. The other thing you can do is play notes together. okay? Different combinations of strings, plucking notes together. So that can be a little challenging at first when you do this, because you might not get an even volume across all fingers, and that will come with time. So you might find one finger sort of attacks the string, you know, a little more than the other, and it's an uneven sort of volume. So it takes a little bit of practice, all the more reason to include this early on too. So if we were to take some sort of basic pattern, I mean, you could just simply play through the chords and pluck them all together. So I'm just plucking the 5th string and the top 3 strings. What I was arpeggiating before, I'm just playing all together. The thumb plucks downward, the fingers pluck upward at the same time. You might find that your thumb, when you follow through with plucking, let's say the C chord here, the thumb will just come to rest on that index finger. And then you could work through the chords. Or you could sort of break it up. Sometimes you'll break it up where you might go that sort of thing. So you can get the thumb and then the fingers 1 and 2 together, perhaps on the first beat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Sometimes I'm plucking this is an example where you might have a situation where the index finger or all 3 fingers move. So for example, on the C chord, you've got the thumb on the bass, on the root, and you could either have those 3 fingers on their 3 strings, 3, 2, and 1 up top, or you could have those 3 fingers on strings 2, 3, and 4. So you've got an index finger that is on a bass string, and you've got the other 2 that were on the top 2 strings on the 3rd and 2nd. So sometimes people get caught up with that, as I said before, and think they've broken some sort of rule. There is no rule here. There's just guidelines to follow, and once you've got this set, it can move where, fingers can end up on different strings. You're still going to be plucking sort of in a sequential way with the 3 fingers and the thumb, or whatever sort of combination you're doing. So that's a couple of basic approaches to get finger picking going there, okay? And the 2 sort of things that you do, you're either doing at any given time. You're either playing notes together or you're arpeggiating, just like you are after you're playing with a pick. You're arpeggiating, picking the chords, it's strumming.
Simon, is there a name for this sort of finger picking? So people may have heard names like claw hammer or Travis picking or hybrid picking, which is not this, but is there any name for this? It's just standard basic finger picking.
It's just standard basic finger picking. There's not really a name. There will be names for things coming up from here, but this is just anytime I sort of refer to this, I just say single notes or notes together. There's nothing, no name I'm aware of anyway that's commonly used to describe that, other than just basic finger picking. And sometimes people get a bit caught up in finger style and finger picking. Are they different? To me, it's one and the same. Sometimes people will refer to classical more as finger style, and if you're doing sort of Travis picking stuff, country stuff, or similar, it's more finger picking. And that may be true, and that might be the terms used in those circles. But for me, finger style, finger picking, it's really one and the same. But if we now move to something that does have a name and is arguably the most common finger picking pattern you're going to find in many, many songs, that's Travis picking. So Travis picking is a pattern where it's all based around your thumb. Your thumb is playing, I'll keep a simple bass here. So if I just grab my C chord, I'll demonstrate it, and then I'll show you how we can break it down and what I believe is the quickest way to be Travis picking, because people can look at this pattern and see it many, many times over in all its different sort of combinations and variations that you'll see, and not really ever discover that there is a pattern there, and they get caught up in sort of the details of it. But if we look at the concepts and the foundation of it, it's a lot easier to then recognize and use and ad lib with. So the basis of Travis picking is that your thumb, it's the most important part of this pattern, is playing a bass pattern that is constant. It repeats over and over and over and over, and it's always, without exception, always on the beat, on the 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I've got the C chord, a Travis picking pattern would be to go 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, which is referencing the strings, 5th string, 4th string, 5th, 4th, with the thumb. And then on top, the fingers can do various things in between the bass notes on the off beats, with the bass notes on the beat, and variations of that. It doesn't matter so much when you just ad-libbing with it. It might be a certain way for a particular song, but the thumb is the constant. You can play notes together, and you would have heard songs like Landslide, normally capoed at the 3rd fret, but these sorts of things use Travis picking. It's a very, very common pattern. Now it can be tricky to get going at first, because the whole thing with finger picking is getting this independence between the thumb and the fingers. The thumb's its own thing, it's your bass player here, and it's playing a bass pattern, and then the fingers are doing various rhythms on the higher strings, patterns on the higher strings. So a sort of easier way into this pattern, if we just focus on the C chord, just grab the C chord here, and you're going to start by using your thumb and your index finger, so P and I, and you're going to pluck together at the same time the 5th and 3rd strings, like that. Okay, just the 5th string and the 3rd string, which is open in the C chord, together at the same time. Then you're going to take the thumb and the middle finger, P and I, and you're going to pluck the 4th and 2nd strings together. So you get the 2nd and 1st fretted notes on those respective strings. So you got thumb and index, 5th and 4th string, thumb and middle, 4th and 2nd string. So that's a pinch. We'd refer to that as a pinch. So if you're using just the thumb and one finger to pluck at the same time, the thumb and any one of the fingers, that's referred to as a pinch. And that's what we're doing there, just to get started here. Pinch, pinch, pinch. And we're going to alternate between those two. So we're going to have thumb and middle, thumb and index, thumb and middle, thumb and index, thumb and middle, thumb, index, thumb and middle, back and forth, alternating. And as you do that, don't worry if it feels a little awkward and it's not even or anything like that, that's fine. You can refine this as you practice it. But as you do that, I want you to count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we're just simply playing on the beat of the bar each time. 1 in 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go slower if you want. 1, 2, that's fine. As long as you're counting, that's really, really important. Count 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't even have to be strictly in time to an exact tempo at this point, but still count 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and once you've got that, then what I want you to do is separate the notes. So instead of pinching together with thumb and index, you're going to play thumb, then index. And then instead of pinching thumb and middle, you're going to pluck separately thumb, then middle. And you're still going to alternate. So instead of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're still counting. The thumb's still on the beat, we're counting so we know it's on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. However, the plucking of the fingers is in between the beat on the end. You can count 1 and 2 and if you want, but it's enough just to count the beat also, as long as it's on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're doing that, you're Travis picking. You've got it, right? It's just a matter of getting the fluency and a little bit of speed to it, perhaps. But that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. So that's our progression. Two, 3, 4. So this is constant. It's always on the beat. And the fingers in between. Now, the thing is, we're not just always playing a straight eighth note pattern. We can do that, but it's often not happening most time when you're Travis picking. But the thumb is, again, just to make the point really clear, the thumb is always happening. Okay, it's always on the beat. It's the constant. That's why it's so important. It's keeping everything together. It's the glue of the pattern, if you like. And so an additional step here, once you've gone through the process of pinching and counting as you do, and then separating 1, 2, 3, 4, and you might even just 3, 4, just play the thumb on its own, isolated, just to realize, yeah, that's its own part. And then we've got, okay, because I want you to think of it as two separate parts. If I just do this, you think, oh, there's one part, but we want to see this as two separate entities, if you like. You've got this, 3, 4, 1, 2, and you've got this, and on the chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. That's happening. Kind of like left right hand with the pianist. Okay, even though it sort of looks like one part, you might tab it down, it looks like one part. We want to see it as two separate parts and be able to identify the two parts and then hear the sum of the two together. Now, once you've got that, then it's a matter of just to get some variation to that pattern, and there's lots of variations you can do with the pattern. However, to get started, to get something that sounds maybe a little more like Travis picking without doing the straight eighth notes, is to edit out any sort of combination of the index, middle, and ring fingers. Well, in fact, in this case, we're just using index and middle. And by editing, I just mean take out some of the notes that they're playing. So, for example, I could omit plucking the G, the open third string, on the and of 1. So instead of 1 and 2 and, sorry, I didn't do my bass there, 1 and 2 and, instead of that, we go 1, 2 and. So we've taken out that 1, 2 and. But the counting is really, really important. We don't want to go 1 and 2 or 1 and 2. Okay, it's 1, 2 and. So this is now going to be a quarter note. 1, 2 and. 1, 2 and. And then we can continue with all the other plucks. So we've got 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the quarter note on the first beat. So our chord progression, etc. Or you could take out the and of the 4 if you like. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2, or anything there. You could just omit, and you could write them out and then just literally take out one of the, don't take out the thumb, that's got to be there all the time on the beat, but any of these and you'll get various patterns. And it can go a little deeper by plucking some notes together when you're playing, and some variation in the bass patterns, not much though. There's not a whole lot of patterns to learn here at all. We could do a whole thing on this, but that would be a way to get started with Travis picking, which for me, and I think a lot of people would agree who fingerpick, is the most common pattern you're going to come across, at least in sort of mainstream sort of fingerpicking music outside of flamenco and classical styles.
So just to kind of summarize what you're saying there, instead of for students who want to learn this, instead of thinking I've got 100 different finger picking patterns that I've got to learn or that exist, it's really what you're describing is one concept, and then simply shifting things around or taking something out, and then you come up with all kinds of variations. So when people learn this on the conceptual level, they're really learning one thing right now that you've talked about, and then just easily making variations by omitting something. And it's not like you've got to learn 100 patterns. You got to learn one idea and then make simple variations from that. I think that's what you've described so far. Is that correct?
Exactly. Absolutely spot on. That's and the other way you can do it, which is the hard way, is the way you describe, is seeing it as all these different patterns and seeing it in this song and that song, and not sort of seeing the forest for the trees type thing. You want to step back and see the pattern, the concept, because it becomes something that you'll be able to ad lib on and keep the thumb going, just like you can ad lib on your strumming. You get a few sort of strumming patterns down, you get the concept of strumming, let's say eighth notes. Now you can do all sorts of combinations of eighth note strumming patterns by missing the up on the ands and so forth. It's the same sort of thing here. And then you could look at a song, for example, if I had to play Landslide, someone's going to sing, I'm not going to, and I have to do it right now. I don't know that song, all the little intricate bits and pieces, but I know it's Travis picking. I know the chords, so I can ad lib that and play through the song as long as I can hear the song in my head and so forth. I can do that, and there's many other songs like that you can do that with. So yes, it's the concept and all the variations that can come from it. But if you understand it and you build it from the ground up, it's a lot easier. So another approach is tremolo picking. So it's a really nice sound to tremolo pick. So not tremolo picking in the sense of with a flat pick and tremolo picking on a single note, but the finger picking, tremolo picking, which is a similar thing. And there's a way that I like to teach this, because when we hear it all together, it's like that, right? So we'll build it here. So basically, if we just take the C chord, our thumb, again, different parts happening at the same time. Independence of thumb independence is really important in finger picking, between the fingers and the thumb of your picking hand. So here, if we grab a C chord and we take the thumb and we're going to play, simply we're going to arpeggiate the chord with the thumb from the 5th string up to the 2nd and back down to the 5th. So here's another example of where we break out of that, fingers on the top 3 strings, thumb on the bottom 3. You'll hear that a lot if you look up fingerpicking and search fingerpicking resources. And it's not wrong, it's just that it's not always going to be the case. We don't want to have that restrict us. So here we've got the C chord, we've got the thumb only at this point, and it's playing, arpeggiating the chord from 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, back to 3rd, back to 4th, back to 5th. Now, in between each one of the notes you're playing with your thumb, you're going to use your index finger to pluck the top string. Okay, so now it's going to go thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index. So in between every bass note with the thumb, or every note of the chord being arpeggiated here, is plucking and pedaling. This is not so much tremolo, it's a way in. It's a technique in itself, so it's not a little thing that you'll never use, this is very common to pedal a tone. In this case, pedaling the top open string while arpeggiating the C chord. So you get that sort of thing. So slowly. Okay, and so if we were to take that through the progression, I'm just going from the base of the chord up to the second string and back down. Okay, so you're arpeggiating the chord, that's what you're really hearing, that's where the movements come in, and you've got this nice pedal of the, in this case, the open E string on the top. And you could do any sort of, for the sake of doing something that's simple, I'm just picking up and down the chord, but you could do different, arpeggiated patterns with the thumb in the chord while you're pedaling that top string. It doesn't always just have to be up and down, but that would be the easiest way to begin. Now, when you're doing this, you could also try the thumb and middle finger. You can hear, at least I can hear a difference in the tone there, but more the point, it exercises each finger. So you got the thumb and middle. Versus thumb, index. Definite difference in tone there. And you could do the thumb and ring finger, so P and A. So you might favor one that you like better, feels better, you like the sound of it better. So when you do this sort of thing, you might do it with a particular finger, and that's fine. But as an exercise in getting all fingers working, it's great to alternate between and have a go of thumb index, thumb middle, thumb ring finger, and again getting that independence between the thumb and the fingers. So that's a pedaling approach, which sort of is a thing in itself, but a doorway, if you like, into tremolo picking. So if we do the same thing on the C chord here, and play from the 5th string up to the 2nd and back down to the 5th again, this time in between we're going to play 2 E strings, 2 open E strings with the middle and the index finger. Now it's really important that you use the middle then index finger. It's probably going to naturally, if I just said pluck the top string twice, you're either going to use one finger to do it, or probably what might feel more natural in the beginning would be to do the index then the middle, index, middle, index, middle. We don't want that. We want middle first, then the index. And so we're doing the same thing with the thumb, but in between, index, middle, thumb, 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 index, middle. Okay, so we get 2 of the open top strings. It'll feel a little tricky at first, as anything new does, but it starts to get that tremolo going now, where you've got the arpeggiating of the chord and the top string being played twice in between each chord, in between each note. And it lends itself to a triplet sort of rhythm, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Okay, because you're playing groups of 3 there, the thumb and the 2 fingers. So that's one sort of cycle: thumb, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index. Yeah, exactly. Someone has just said in the Bud in the chat, thinking triplets. Exactly. Yeah, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, so that's a really nice sound, and that one's not. It takes a little bit of practice, of course, but it's not too bad. It's not super difficult once you get it going. Very slowly, but that's now getting into the territory of tremolo picking. But typically, tremolo picking will be with the 3 fingers on the top string. So in front of middle and index, you put the ring finger, A. So it's now going to pluck first, A, then middle, then index. So again, not index, middle, ring, which might feel more natural for you. It's the ring finger first, then the middle, then the index. And the thumb is still going to play a note out of the chord. So now we get more of a 16th note or semiquaver rhythm, because we've got 4 attacks. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and And this is the sort of thing, for me at least, definitely with this one, I think, but I think I'm probably like this with the triplet one as well. Floating pinky. I have a floating pinky there. If I have my pinky even just brushing up against the body of the guitar, it's sort of, you can do it, but I feel more restricted in my fingers there. I can't quite get the follow through I need. It's a little restricted with the pinky, even just lightly on the body of the guitar. This one for me is one where I've got a floating pinky. It's not doing anything. It's just relaxed, floating above the strings, above the bridge. And then you can take that through the chord progression. And a lot of the time when you hear this sort of playing, it's not always, but quite often it's rubato. It's not a strict in-tempo sort of sound. So that kind of makes it easier in a sense, because I mean, rubato is another thing again, and it's not just playing anything whenever you want. But you've got to have a sense of time for rubato to then manipulate it and stretch it. But and by rubato, we just really means sort of simply put, speeding up and slowing down. So instead of to a strict sort of tempo there, it might be you can just really, I'm not demonstrating it that well there, but it's just, you can speed up and slow down, you can take your time with it, you can just relax the time, and it can sound really nice, even just, noodling around. And great for, again, all these patterns are great for building the technique in your fingers and the independence between the thumb and the fingers. So that's a tremolo picking in the finger picking world. Used a lot in flamenco and classical styles, but also will be found in other finger picking styles too. A lot of things can cross over, and like anything, you could, if we just think of the finger pick or the general guitar playing world, if you like, it's great to grab things from different styles, even if you don't play that particular style. And same with finger picking. I'm not a classical player, I'm not a flamenco player, but it's nice to grab some techniques that appeal to you from those styles of music. So one other pattern that we could have a look at here to, bring variety to what we're doing, and to also touch on another very common pattern and approach, is what we call banjo rolls. So it comes from banjo, and it's a technique that it's sort of been adapted for guitar playing, because of course banjo's a stringed instrument played with the fingers, so a lot of things can cross over there. So there's different sorts of rolls, but a very basic one would be a forward roll. So a forward roll would be simply, if we play on the top 3 strings here of the guitar, we'll use our thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle. Okay, and it's forward. It's thumb, then index, then middle, thumb, index, middle on the 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd strings. And what we want to get rhythmically is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and So I'm going 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2. So it's not just 3, 3, 3. It's 2 3s, 3, 3, and 2 to fit into a 4/4 bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just a simple little forward banjo roll. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You could rest the pinky here or you could float. Okay, so that could sound good on just the standard chords, but here you might pick little, like I'll quickly show you little sort of a combination of triads and little chord fragments here. So if we have like a C root position triad shape on the top 3 strings, so I've got my first finger 3rd fret, 1st string, I've got my pinky 5th fret, 2nd string, and I've got my 3rd finger also in the 5th fret on the 3rd string. So it's a little root position C major triad. So top 3 notes, top 3 strings of the root 5 C bar chord. Okay, I could take that, there's my C chord for our C progression here, and apply that banjo roll. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Right, that sort of thing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so 2 3s and a 2. And I could take that pattern and run it through the progression. So if I want to sort of stay on these chords, these fragmented chords here, C dropped down to B in the bass. So we could just simply, from that shape, take the 3rd finger off and put the 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So that C note on string 3 at the 5th fret has dropped down to a B note on the same string down at the 4th fret. And I use my 2nd finger for that. My 1st and pinky are staying where they were for the C. So it's a simple little change there. So we've got C and then dropping down. So we're reflecting what we're doing following the progression here. Okay, and then for the A minor, we could just move down and play the top 3 strings of the A minor chord. So we're not playing the full A minor, we're just playing the 2nd fret, 3rd string, 1st fret on the 2nd string in the open 1st. And because I'm only playing a little fragment of that chord, I'm using my 2nd finger for the A here rather than my 3rd, because I'm not going to play the full shape. So it's just a more natural way to fret that when we're playing it in this context. And when we get to that A minor, we can apply the pattern. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and because the next chord had the G in the bass, the fuller version here, we can just take that 2nd finger off, leave the 1st finger on, and now we've got, wouldn't really call that an A minor with a G in the bass, but it's just following the bass movement in the chord. So really we've just been following the bass on the 3rd string there, playing our banjo roll. And then we could go to the little F fragmented chord, a little triad here on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. It's just the notes out of the F bar chord. We probably all know that shape. It's taught with the open chords, right? And if you wanted to keep it really simple for the G chord, you could just take those fingers off and play the same strings. The 4th, 3rd, 2nd. So we've got the D in the bass of the G here. And so banjo rolls typically are played on little little fragmented chord shapes. And there's lots of variations of them, and sometimes it'll you'll involve the drone of an open string and so forth. Here we're not, well, there's a little bit of open strings here, but typically it's done on smaller fragmented chords. And if we put that together, the F and the G, A minor, and the G, and then back to the C again if you like, or you can come back into your chord C, whatever you want to do there. And another banjo roll pattern that's very, very similar, the backward roll, is where you play the thumb and then the middle first. So instead of thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, we're going thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, and then we could go thumb, index. So that's the backward roll, coming back down the chord. We still start with the thumb on the bass, but instead of forward, ascending, we're backward. So forward and back. Okay, and that's, I mean, banjo rolls is a whole world with that, but that's a great one again for a pattern that you can work with when finger picking. So instead of just sort of going with general patterns, which are useful, and single note stuff and notes together that we started with here, there are certain types of patterns that you'll come across: Travis picking, tremolo, banjo rolls. There's other things, but I think those would be a great place to start, because they're not only going to give you practical combinations of your fingers that you'll come across in finger picking, they're great for building the technique as well in terms of the thumb independence and the fingers.
Very good. Quick clarifying question here, Simon. On that backwards banjo roll, the backward roll, it was PMI, PMI, P. What was the last?
PMI, PMI, PI.
PI.
But yes, which is what I was doing. But you could PMI, PMI, PM. There's nothing wrong. It's still sort of backwards.
Sure.
So you could do that. But I was, as you got there, PMI, PMI, PI. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got it in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, this has been awesome stuff, Simon. Awesome stuff. And I appreciate you coming on and going through all this stuff. Now, I know that there's a lot more to learn. A lot more people would like to learn. And if they wanted to find out more, if they wanted to get something more from you, I think you have a resource for them to check out. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. And it is, I think it's, there we go. Yes, so this is an ebook, and it has links inside it embedded that will take you to a page on my website with videos of what is in the book, which is, as it says, melodic finger picking patterns. So by melodic, I mean that instead of just playing standard open chords with your finger picking, in this book there's 10 patterns, and they're simple patterns, pretty simple patterns. I picked the simplest patterns I could, but they sound really good because of what I'm doing with my fretting hand. And we didn't get into that a whole lot today, but the fretting hand will have as much to do as your picking hand as to how good you sound finger picking. You can have great chops here, but if you're just playing standard sort of chord shapes, there's only so much. It'll sound good. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot more we can do, and it doesn't have to be difficult. And what I've chosen here in these examples is patterns that are often simpler to play than your open chords, and certainly simpler than bar chords. They sound really nice. Lots of open droning strings and things like this. For example, that progression that we're playing today could be played in like 10th harmony. Which is quite simple, but sounds really nice. Voicing out the chord progression like that. Nice big open droning strings, which sound really pretty, really beautiful, and it's very simple. I'm not even really holding chord shapes there. It's just a 10th harmony, 2 notes together, harmonizing with open strings. So that's just an example of the sort of things in this book where the fretting hand can really contribute to the sound of what you're doing. So there's 10 patterns in there, very simple to learn. The patterns are isolated, so you can practice them on open strings, and then they're applied musically in ways I was just talking about, and videos of me doing that. So you can go to a page, you'll see all the videos there, so you can get a very clear idea of what it should sound like. So yeah, that can be found on that link on your screen there. And it's a free resource that if you want to get into some more finger picking and have a nice way to sound good as soon as possible, that should help. So, yes.
And just to clarify, you sell this for like $1,000, right? It's $1,000.
Yes.
No, it's free, guys. It's free. I
Of
don't know if
course.
you caught that. Everything you just talked about is totally free. It's not selling it. You can download it right now. It's totally free.
That's right. Normally $1,000 today, free for you. So.
For you only, it's free. Right.
Yes, that's right.
But if you come back tomorrow, $1,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you to everyone who hung out with us today. Great stuff, Simon, as usual, as always. Very good. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a super awesome day. Thank you, Simon. Take care. See everybody.
Thanks, guys.